I feel like it gets to a stage as an adult that you should have more understanding of your parents. Like, not that you should forgive them for certain things, but you would understand where they were coming from because you yourself, as an adult, now have, bird's eye view of the situation. Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Ify and this is Ify's Beats. On this channel, I tell you about my life living in Canada as a Nigerian Canadian, and I give you reviews, personal experiences, and even I talk about immigration and everything in between. So if that's your vibe, please like, subscribe, comment, and engage with this video. On today's video, I am going to be reviewing the book Dream Count. I do not have the physical copy, I have the e-copy, and that's what I'm going to be basing my review on. So I'm using my tab right now. I don't think you can see it, it's just here. Anyway, I'm sure you'll be wondering why I'm talking about this book. Well, at the beginning of 2026, I made a video talking about my New Year resolutions. I don't like to say resolutions, I find that to be cheesy, but things I want to do in 2026. And one of the things I said was I want to read more. And staying true to that, I started the year by finally reading Dream Count. It came out last year and I was really eager to read it, but I was always just doom scrolling when I wasn't busy and busy when I wasn't doom scrolling. So I didn't get around to doing that. But I finally did. And, I enjoyed it to an extent. So first of all, I want to say that I relate to this book more than ever not because of the content in itself, but, well, the content anyways, but the fact that I'm now an immigrant, when I used to read a lot of Chimamanda books while I was in university living in Nigeria, anytime it had any reference to living abroad, I always, when you hear about living abroad, living away from your home country, it does you understand it, but you can't relate to it. So to an extent, you don't grasp certain things. But now reading the book, I can see how some of the struggles I've seen some people go through it, even though I didn't really experience some of the things the women experience, but I can understand it better now. So that's the point I was trying to make. So first off, the book follows the lives of 4 women during the pandemic in 2020. One is Chiamaka, Zikora, Kadiatu, and Omelogo, with Omelogo being fully based in Nigeria, while Chiamaka and Zikora and Kadiatu based in the US. The book goes Chiamaka first, then we hear from Zikora, we hear from Kadiatu, we hear from Omelogo, and then we hear from Chiamaka again to wrap up the book. So Chiamaka feels like, to an extent, the center of the book. When I got to the end of the book, I realized that the book was inspired by Nafissatou Diallo. She is the one who causes the creation of the character Kadiatu. And there are similarities to their storyline, although Chimamanda does iterate that before or Chimamanda does state that before the rape incident or the sexual abuse incident, initial storyline of Kadiatu is her brainchild. So how do I feel about this book? Well, first of all, I found that the book didn't give me any closure. There was no full closing. It just wraps up with Kadiatu's case being dropped, which is sort of a negative and a positive thing. Positive in the sense that Kadiatu didn't want to go to court and she was going through a lot and she just wanted to bury it and have it go away. But negative in the sense that, if this man is getting away with it, this character is getting away with it, then, you can imagine that they would go on to harm more women in the future. So it's not necessarily but her story is the one that had some bit of closure. The other ones, nothing really happens. So, and I don't know, when the story doesn't have closure, it feels artistic, but artistic for artistic sake. For me, a very basic reader, it just feels like I've been left hanging in a way. And if you think about it, sometimes that's how life is. Not everything has closure, and that's why I think of it as being artistic when writers write and there's no closure at the end. So for the first character, which is Chiamaka, I really couldn't relate to that character. she felt like she was called Chia. I really like the name because I take chia seeds a lot now. For some reason, anytime I would see Chia, I would be like, Chia. Most times people use Chi for the short form of Chiamaka, not Chia. But anyways, I digress. So Chiamaka did a lot of questionable things. The men she chose, their characters were very, very they were found wanting. It was very stressful to read, especially Danielle. Like, you could spend a whole week talking about Danielle. And it's not a very unrealistic story. We hear of women who have just have are stuck choosing terrible men. So, but it doesn't make it any less infuriating anytime you hear of a new one. So reading that story was very tiring and infuriating and exasperating, and I just genuinely did not like the character. It felt like someone that didn't grow up, that just had daddy's money. She was travel writing, but it didn't seem like she was making anything out of it. It wasn't progressing that much. And she didn't just think, what, maybe I should do something else, or maybe I could keep doing this on the side and do other things. At a point, I was like, you could just travel blog or travel vlog. You don't have to just stick to just writing. And for someone with as much resources as she did, I felt like, are you sure you're taking advantage of all your resources to really help with your writing, or is your writing not just that great? I don't know. The character, she wasn't doing anything fantastic career-wise. She was just getting to travel. And as a very average person, it feels very annoying to read of someone like this who isn't trying to do much with themselves. Okay, but that's fine. Maybe if my parents had a lot of money to give me, maybe I would feel that way. But then there's also the aspect that you're also choosing terrible men who you are basically sponsoring, and a lot of them are still treating you like dirt. And even the ones that treated her well, it's like she didn't want to stay. There was one who treated her, but even that I could understand to an extent, because I think there was a point where he felt like he was doing her a favor by marrying her at her age. But still, I don't know. Like, I don't even know. It doesn't even know what she wants. There was a part where Omelogo tells her that all you say is you want to be known, but I know you fully. And she was like, no, she wants to be known by a romantic partner. And then that's like, okay. So then it's not that you want to be known, is that, I don't know, it seems like her expectations are not going to be met. But in a way, I also feel like I'm just jealous of her. She has the luxury of just doing all this because there's a lot of money. I feel like I'm being stuck in my head right now, because honestly, you are free to do a lot of things. You are free to do anything you want to do. But I think I'm thinking of it like, oh, but I don't have money. And that's sort of being a prisoner of my own self. But honestly, I just feel like that woman wasn't making a lot with her life, considering all the resources she had. And even from every other person's point of view, they felt like she was just this very naive, beautiful. And that's another thing. She was described as being extremely beautiful and not seeing her own beauty. In fact, crying as a child because someone attributed praised boys for their brains. And, I could understand that as a child, that would be really painful. But as an adult, she wasn't even using the beauty to do anything. She was just staying with very broke men. Oh God, I don't know. Honestly, the character was very stressful. I know money wasn't her problem, but the men had terrible characters, and then she was actively the side chick for another man. And like, how are you okay with a man that's cheating on his wife with you? That character, her redeeming quality, honestly, was that she was a nice person, very generous, especially with Kadia too. And you could tell that, I don't know if you could call her a girl's girl because she was with a married man, but the married man situation aside, it felt like she was actively there for women, at least the women in her life. Maybe that's where I would say she's her friend's girl, but not a general girl's girl because she was with a married man. The next character is Zikora. Zikora was just a prude whose life didn't go according to plan. Work-wise, she was very hardworking. I just want to state that all the characters had very great, aside Chiamaka. But the other three were doing very well in their careers. And Zikora was doing excellently well. She wasn't even doing anything illegal. She had worked hard as a lawyer. And things didn't just go as planned. She was one of those characters that, unlike Chia, she was the second character that was like seemingly the opposite of Chia, in the sense that they wanted to achieve all the regular things. They wanted to have a good career, have a good family, meet a good man, have children. They wanted the very regular life, the regular things that people wanted. But unfortunately for her, she didn't get that. And I feel like it might be because, I don't know, I don't think there's any specific reason. Some people are not just going to be lucky in love. And that was her problem, not she wanted those things to the point that she became desperate. Like the regular woman, you become desperate when you get to your 30s, accepting things that you shouldn't be accepting. And to be honest, that's where Chia is better than her, because Chia, even though she stays with very stupid men, it gets to a point where she gets naturally tired and she leaves you. And I feel like if Zikora was approaching love like that, she would have met men eventually that were going to stay with her long term. But she did eventually meet the Ghanaian man who abandoned her as soon as he found out she was pregnant. That one was also very sad. It just shows you that you can plan your life all you want, but things will not always go as you want. In fact, honestly, for the two of them, Chia and Zikorai, was the same thing. You try to Chia didn't plan anything, but it was more like she wanted something and she didn't feel she had gotten it as at the time COVID hit. And Zikora had planned her life but hadn't gotten it. That's why she was having a breakdown. For the Zikora character, it was just, I don't know, it's like a very, it was a nice shift. I really liked how Chimamanda wrote Chia. It's like this person that doesn't want the regular things, and then you meet the person that wants the regular things and couldn't get them. And it was just sad, she definitely could have made better choices in terms of the men she was going with when she became desperate. But that's the thing with desperation, it blinds you. That character I still do not like. I found her to be very judgmental, especially with her relationship with Omelogo. It was just I didn't really like her per se. I did feel pity for her, and her redeeming quality for me was finally getting to know her mom. And I found the character really annoying when you think back about how she didn't stand with her mom in her childhood. The father had a second wife, and she wanted to go with the father to the golf club when he was moving out of the house, even though the mother told her not to. And I'm sure that was part of the things that really broke their relationship. But as I said, the redeeming thing in the story was the fact that she finally saw her mom for who she was. Although to me, it took way too long. I'm not saying her mom wasn't written as a very nice person, especially with not wanting to hold her hand in labor. But I feel like it gets to a stage as an adult that you should have more understanding of your parents. Like, not that you should forgive them for certain things, but you would understand where they were coming from, because you yourself as an adult now have, bird's eye view of the situation. And the next person is Kadiatu. Kadiatu honestly was my favorite character, and you could tell that she really did inspire the story. With her situation, it felt less like her mentality didn't stress me out the way Chia's situation with Danielle did, because it's like this was where she was raised, and it made sense that she grew up the way she grew up, and she had the sense she had, because you could see that anytime her eyes were opened to new things, she might be resistant at first, but she eventually could understand why, and she could change. She was more open to change. As conservative as she wanted better for her daughter. She was circumcised as a child, and she eventually realized that maybe that shouldn't be it. Maybe my child shouldn't have to experience that. And that growth as a person was very admirable. I think that really is what I found really annoying with Chia. It didn't feel like I was getting any growth from the character. Zikora had some growth with her mom, but she still seemed somewhat bitter. But I'm happy that she loved her child. But with Kadiatu, there was progressive growth. And what happened to her, the rape, the sexual abuse situation, was what set her back. And that pained me. I really felt so sad for that character at the time. But I loved the growth she experienced. And you couldn't tell from where her life started to where it ended, to where the story ended, that was where the character would be. At a point I was like, how did she then make it to the US when she's married to this man in the mining community and blah 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 blah. But she was such a fantastic character. She was so open to growth, and she did grow, and she was such a hard worker, and she experienced this hurtful thing that women across the world, have experienced for years. And I don't know, that was the best character in that story. And then there's Omelogo. The way Omelogo came off in the other characters' write-ups versus how she came off when she wrote herself, I don't know, there was a little bit of a disparity, but generally I liked Omelogo. I felt like, I don't know if it's because I grew up predominantly in Nigeria before moving to Canada, so I could understand the things she did, even the things that she did that were illegal. It's like, as a Nigerian, how there's a lot of money is put before anything, and there's a culture that people get validation from having money, from being better than their neighbor. So it wasn't surprising, it wasn't shocking that this person was laundering money for politicians. It's not a nice character, but you see it so much in Nigeria that it no longer, like, for me as a Nigerian, it wasn't something that was shocking. But that being said, the fact that she was given to women was really nice, which is, she felt like the real actual girl's girl. Zikora didn't feel that way. For Chia felt like, as I said, for her friends she's a girl's girl, for other women not so much. And Omelogo felt like a girl's girl. I don't remember her really being with a married man, but with the number of her short, passionate attacks that she had, I feel like she might have been. But she felt like someone that genuinely wanted to support women, not just the women in her life. And then I think that was the major redeeming thing about her. The fact that she wanted to give grants. She gave grants to women from stolen wealth and helped many women start up businesses. And it really just shows you what women can do in the society when given a chance. And we see it every day. You go to the market, see a lot of hardworking women who are fending for their families in Nigeria. I really liked Omelogo, and she's very different. She had that ability to shock you, and in a way, I don't necessarily think I'm like that, but I feel like sometimes I say the oddest things. So I think I really like that about the character. After Kadeatu, she was my favorite, honestly. And I understood the depressive episodes she experienced in the US. Saying very odd things is already stressful when you are in your home country, but you say odd things that aligns with the context. So now imagine going to a new culture, and then things that even your people considered odd were considered even worse in those different cultures. And some of the things she said weren't even that bad. In fact, they weren't even bad at all. It was just, it felt like she was experiencing a lack of cultural humility in the US, which is something that a lot of immigrants complain about. But generally, I liked her character. And I liked that she was considering having children, and what her auntie said, made her reflect, because I feel like when you're able to reflect, it's such a good quality. Sometimes you're always so convinced and self-absorbed that you're convinced in the idea that the things you're doing, they are right, that you never reflect, you never reconsider that maybe I could be doing things differently. Not that I'm saying women should get married and have babies, no, but I'm saying that the fact that she actually thought to herself, do I really think I'm happy? And she eventually came to the conclusion that she was. I thought it was a good quality to actually reflect. I really like that character. I can't overstate that. But Kadeatu was my favorite. The book in general, I enjoyed it. I feel like Chimamanda's writing style, you can never praise it enough. It's very refreshing. I look for it whenever I read other books. I'm like, oh my god, I wish I could enjoy the writing style the way I enjoy Chimamanda's. I love it. I think for me that was my favorite part, not even the story, just the writing style, the way she phrases her words and everything. It's just, I learned so much from the way she writes. But generally the book, you could tell that this wasn't written from a very happy place, which you would see from the fact that she had just lost her mom. But I still like the book. I like the writing style, and it represented like everyday life, not having closure, not meeting perfect characters, just four imperfect women, going through life the best way they can, the best way they know how to. So that was it. So I loved it. I'm looking forward to reading another book. I've started it honestly, and once I finish it, I hope to make another video like this, talking about it, And I honestly say, as I said before, as an immigrant, some books that touch on immigration, I can relate better now because now I've lived it and I'm currently living it. So yeah. Yeah. If you've watched up to this point, thank you very much. Please like, subscribe, share, engage. Tell me what you think about the book Dream Count. I'm looking forward to my next read. But yeah, hopefully I read more books this year so I can make more videos and I stick to my goals. Anyways, see you on my next video. Bye guys.